Hello and welcome to this edition of the Survalyzer self-onboarding video series. Today we will talk about distribution and survey activation. And to follow up this video, we recommend again to pause on all those specific places and times in the videos where we ask you to pause and just redo what we just did so that you also can experience how Survalyzer is working in all those different cases. And we will go through this application step by step once again. And we will go again in our onboarding workspace that you should also have. And there we have the survey we created last time. Good, we go step by step and we will start with things we can do within the survey. And we will go, after we open the survey, as you just see on my screen, we will jump on the distribute tab. So for this video, just to explain something I already created and added a second language. Most likely your version will have just one language, and please keep it like that for this video. It will simplify certain steps. Good. So this video, and in this part of the video, we will talk a little bit about the part that we see here in the sidebar, the right side of the screen right now. In here, we will see the survey links. And the survey links, these are the public unpersonalized links. You could say the anonymous link. So anybody that opens up this link is not in any way identified yet. So we don't know who that is. And currently this survey is also not active, and we will cover that in a second. So let's click on the link to see what actually happens. When I click on this link here for English, then you see it loads for a second, and then the survey is actually loaded. And as you can see, the survey has a test link on top. So it tells you here on this box that this is a test link, but we actually opened up the official link. And the reason why it says it's a test link is because the survey is not yet activated. So on the top right corner, you see the activate survey button. And the activate survey button allows you to actually put this survey into a status, allows you to put the survey in a status that actually allows you to collect active data. And as long as the survey was never activated, it is in the draft state. And therefore, all information collected will always be collected as test interviews. And this is why it tells you when you open up the public link, it also tells you that it is a test link. So to illustrate that, I have this image prepared here. So we see that when we start creating the survey, we are here in the beginning. It's an inactive, it's a draft survey. Everything is recognized as test data when you collect data until you actually activate the survey. So this is the button we have in the top right corner, activate survey. And then there is an active published survey version that gets created at that moment. And it stays active and it collects data until you close the survey. And you can always, if you see, oh, my published survey has a mistake in it, there is something you have to correct, you can go on edit survey. And as soon as you edit the survey, this is what happens here. So I press on edit survey, then my old version is still active, is still published until I actually publish my second version, my adjusted version. So I have a draft version next to the active published survey. So everybody that I invited before sees the old version until I actually activate the new version of it. And then the old one ceases to exist and only the new version 2 exists, and everybody that fills out the survey sees the second version of the survey. So just to tell you what happens and how this actually works when you have an active and inactive version of the survey. Okay, let's go back into the survey at this moment and let's see what else we find here in the sidebar. So we have 3 buttons next to it. We have the copy button, so I can click on it and it copies the survey URL into my clipboard that I can paste, for example, in a chat or something else that is possible. Then next to that, I have a QR code button. This generates a QR code for the survey URL that I can download. I can embed it in a poster, in a letter, or wherever I would like to show this QR code to other people so that they can scan it, and by scanning it, they can fill out the survey. And then the last thing, the pen that we have on the right side, this allows me to actually change the link. So I can adjust it. I can write, let's say, because it's the onboarding distribute. So I call it distribute onboarding. So now I can save that. And now there is a survey link that is be found in the distribute onboarding. And when I click on it, we will see that the URL on top here is adjusted, but it still opens my survey. So this is what I can do by adjusting the survey hash. So this part in the end we call the survey hash, and this I can adjust, and I can always at any time go back and reset it to the original link. Good. Let's take a quick pause here. Please open up your survey and also check the link, adjust the link, and see what actually happens in your browser. And then we will continue with the onboarding next step. Welcome back. Thank you for also playing around and doing that as recommended. And let's do the next step. We want to talk about the next area in the sidebar here. So in here we find test interview. So what does it do? When you hover this icon, it says it allows you to invite your colleagues to test the survey. There is a normal survey test message template used, and that template is a very, very simple survey. So let's quickly do that. Invite ourselves, write in your email address, and you can do that quite along with me. Just put in your email address at the same time and press on send. And that way you also see how this message is and what you receive. And then we will see a tiny bit additional information. And while that is being sent to our email address, let's quickly look at the links on top again. So our general survey link is basically this one. So we have our domain in the beginning. So there can be custom domains for your particular subscription. Sometimes it's a Survalyzer domain with some new subdomain depending on your subscription. And then after that, after the slash here, that is the second area behind here. After the slash, there you will actually find the survey hash. And this, you can see this is the same for both languages. So until the question mark, and from the slash to the question mark, this is the survey hash. And the rest part, the question mark L, it's an L, not a big I, it's an L, equals EN is actually the language. And there you can see that this is different. So we have EN for English and DE for German. Good. In the meantime, the email we should have received. So let us have a look at the email. Now you can see that this is the email we receive. It's a very simple default email with a very normal text. And now we have here an interesting additional part, especially at the end. That's the important thing. It is test equals 1. And this is the same when we are on the build page and we press on the I icon. It opens up the preview of the survey and it adds the end test equals 1. So the test equals 1 identifies always the link as a test interview. So even if you have activated the survey, and you use this test interview send out button and functionality, it will send a test link and they will see the latest version, even if the active version is the version that we did not adjust yet. So we did not publish the changes, but we can let it be tested by other people by using this functionality here in the sidebar. Good. So feel free, if you didn't do it already, you can also now quickly pause and send yourself the test email just that you see what you receive with this test interview functionality in the sidebar. The next thing we want to cover is samples. So we have the Dynata sample and the third-party sample. We won't cover that in this video, but maybe just a quick explanation what it is. With Dynata sample, you can directly buy a sample from Dynata. So you just tell Dynata how big is the sample, what the criteria, the respondents, need to fit in, what country should they come from, stuff like that. And then you get a price, what it will cost you to complete the surveys as many times as you wanted them to send your respondents. And this gives you then an end price. You can buy it directly, and then in the end you get an invoice for the sample that you bought. So this is a by Dynata sample. And a third-party sample, this is a totally different module that covers third-party samples. But let's say it like that. You can directly, whatever third party there is, like Bilendi, Respondi, whatever, you can connect it with the third-party sample wizard that gives you step-by-step instructions what to do on your survey and how to set up the redirects that this setup is working. So this is those two. We won't cover that today in detail. We will more look at and discuss the local sample today. And we want to do that now. So we actually go to samples. And so let's go out of here. Let's go to samples and create a new sample. So let me show you that again. So we went out of the survey, went to the main navigation samples page. And as you can see, and maybe it's like that for you as well, in my test environment for the video, it is like that. I don't have any samples yet. So I can press on create new sample, and this opens a so-called wizard again. And this wizard allows you to step-by-step creating this sample. So the first thing, we create a sample by naming it accordingly. And we call this sample onboarding distribute sample. Let's call it with sample at the end. Oops. Sample. And let's go to the next step. And here now it says that we can upload an Excel file. So, and there we have this button, this big green one, show instructions. And when you open that up, you actually get the information how this file that you want to upload should look like. So usually we should have at least one column, and the column titles are in the first row of that Excel file. That's what it tells us here. And if you want to send out any type of distribution, for example, an email distribution, you should have at least the email field in there. So that is important. Cell phone number would also make sense to have there. So those fields make sense. And you can have additional custom fields. Up to 100 custom fields could be possible. To understand it a little bit better, let's download the sample file next. You can download that on your machine as well to follow along. So open up the sample file. So this is the sample file that we just downloaded, and it's a little bit color coded. So we see here the green ones. These are the system fields. That is, so these are variables that will always be there for any sample that you create. You will always have a variable for email, a field for first name, one for the last name, one for the language, one for the gender, also a code. We will talk about this later in this video, what the code means. This can be empty. A cell phone number. In general, all system fields can also be empty if you don't need them. But if no row is filled, no value is present in any of those cells, then there is no member to be created. So at least one field should be filled when you upload to create those members. So the green ones, as I said, these are system fields. And then we have the custom fields. And they don't need to be named field A, field B, field C. These are just examples, what you can have, and that you can have additional fields. And you can have up to 100 additional custom fields that you can name however you like. So those are those fields at the end here. The gender, that's a default system variable for all members, where 0 equals male, 1 equals female, and 2 equals diverse. So whenever you prepare your upload file, these are the numbers for the upload that you can have and adjust. Good. Before we use this file to upload, and if you want to move right along with me, I recommend changing this to your own email address. I will do the same, and we will use that then to upload the file. So let me adjust that. And when you're done, just like me, then save the file and upload the file. So we saved it, and next thing we do is actually uploading that file that we downloaded. In this particular case, we use this one, we upload it, and we save it. And if you did the same as me, you have the same email address in there twice, then you can import all records and allow duplicate email addresses, because for the continuation of this video, it's very beneficial if we have at least two members with two different values, so that you can see that all those adjustments to the survey that we will also do to see what we can do, that you can see the differences. So press the second setting if you use the same email address twice in this sample update file. And then it actually starts an asynchronous import process. So why do I tell you that? Because sometimes it can take quite some time to upload those members, especially if it's more than 2,000 members, then it can easily take a minute or so to finish. As you can see now, it's already finished. It's a fast thing for just 2 members, but we could have also, while the import processing is running, closing that window, and the process will finish anyway, because the file is already uploaded to the server and the server is doing the import step by step. So we got the report. We have 2 members imported successfully. So we will press on finish. And now we are in the sample. We see those 2 members that we uploaded, both with the same email address as expected. And let's click on John for now. And then we will see we have all those fields that we uploaded, the system fields. That's why also I call them system fields, because also in the system and the UI, you will see system fields. And now I have all those individual values, and the code is actually filled. So this is something that the system did now in the background. It created the code for the respondent that I uploaded. And below we have the custom fields that I can open up. So there will be all my custom fields that I have uploaded. Field A, field B, field C, and here again the remark. You can call them whatever you like. It will take the column name of the Excel file. If it is not a system field, he will generate a new one, and you can use all those custom fields however you called them. And it will detect the data type. So as you could see, we had this one column with just numbers 1 and 2. So it's a number field. You can easily identify that by the arrows. Same for field C, but region was just a string, just a text. So that is a text variable. So this is what we can easily do here. And we have in the sidebar, when we opened up the sample, additional information, we know the name of the sample that we can also anytime adjust. We on the bottom have the last import result. So we know, did everything work out when we imported? This is especially interesting if we have used an asynchronous process. So we uploaded, let's say in the morning, the day before, and sometimes the next day I want to check if the import actually was successful. And then I open this up, I see if there was a problem with my upload of the members. Good. And the buttons here on top, so we can always add additional members by uploading an additional Excel file. We can also download the members, adjust that downloaded file, and then upload it again. This allows me to update my members by using an Excel file to import-export the members. Yeah, and I can always add manually new members. There's also a check sample and panel. If you want to, you can click on help, read it, what this is about. This is really about checking the quality of your address list, which in some cases absolutely makes sense to use that feature, just to make sure that your sample is clean and that you don't create too many hard bounces, which will reflect bad on the receivability of your email invitations. Good. This is the sample. And let's go out of the sample now and let's have a look on our survey once again. So we click out, we are still on samples. We have to go to surveys, main navigation. And let's go into the survey that we created in the first video, and let's go to distribute. So now we see that something additionally pops up here. we now have existing data sources, meaning there is a sample that is already created and we can invite that one. So these particular case can happen. So you already prepared the sample that you can use and want to use, then you will find it under existing data source. But you can also, from the distribute tab, you can create the local sample. So you can also do it from this page here. So let's pause the video maybe here in this position and make sure that you have uploaded your own example sample that we can use for the continuation of this video. So please pause the video, upload your sample, and go to the distribute tab after you did it so that we can continue here in the video. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for uploading your sample, your example sample. You will see now that you will find it under existing data source. And before we actually invite that sample, let's go to the build page and do some small adjustments to the survey so that we first of all see what we can do with member information inside our survey, and additionally that we can also see that our invitation works for those individual people that we have in our list. So first things first, let's start with text placeholders. Let's personalize the survey for the recipient. And let's say we want to say hi first name. So we press here hi, and then we have this placeholder section on top. We covered that already in the first onboarding video, but now we want to cover especially the member variables. So we have this member area here. So I pressed on the RTE, I opened the placeholders in the RTE, and now here I will find the members. And here you see all the system fields, but also some custom fields and in which samples those custom fields do exist. So let's start with the first name. So hi, member first name. So now we have this placeholder in here, and now this is individualized. Let's do that. And let's do something else just to show what is happening and what is working. We will actually use sample and panel member information. So the sample member information to hide the gender question. So I added the sample member type, and now I can actually say, so let's say it's field A, field A is equal to 1. So let's say that is a condition. We just did it not because it makes sense, but because we want to see if we can use those information for our survey. So we saw already that we can set it up, and let's see if our individual links later work on. So please, that's the next step. Quickly pause the video and do exactly the steps that I just did. So add the placeholder for the first name or something similar, and set a filter on one of the elements to see if a filter also works on member information. Good, welcome back. Thank you for following along and do all those steps so that you can actually see that everything works. We go now next back to the distribute step, and we will continue there with the next step of the survey and of the invitation process. So for that, we will use our sample that we uploaded. And for that, we can, under existing data source, we can press on the invite button. So when I press on invite, I now have the chance to distinguish and decide what type of channel do I want to use. So we have the email distribution, the SMS distribution. SMS distribution is actually a paid service, so each SMS has to be paid. You can prepay that already, amount of SMS, so some might have that, others might not. But we have the email distribution and we have the linked list distribution. For the first step and for the first tests we will just create a linked list distribution. That's the easiest distribution to create because it just creates individual personal links for each individual respondent that I have in my sample. So this creates that list that I can later on download. So let's do that and press on next. So the second step that allows me to filter my members. So I have the system fields again and custom fields. And sometimes if I have a very, very big sample, tens of thousands of people, then it might make sense to batch it down. So I only want to have and invite a subset, for example. Then sometimes in my custom fields, I have my subset defined in a specific variable. Then I could define that and set a filter. Otherwise, and this is the most simple case and the most often happening case, I already will invite my whole sample. So I don't filter down. That's the main case. Maybe I have just 100 members that I already pre-selected before I created the Excel list for my sample. Then I don't need to filter. So it's just in specific cases, I can filter. As it said, I can invite a subset of my sample. Good. And on the last step, I see three different interesting information here. So generally, this is a summary step that allows me to check if everything is all right. And the first thing it tells me in a small warning message, so it tells me that I have not activated my survey yet, which is a very interesting, important information. The system will allow you to invite people when it's not activated, but only up to 20 people. If it's more than 20, there is a safeguard that doesn't even allow you to send it out. And the reason for that is if I send out survey links before I activated the survey, those links will be test interview links. They won't collect live data. So that's why the warning is there, and that's why it actually expects you to activate. And you can do that. You can actually quickly close this, and you can always proceed the invitation process later on. So you can quickly close it as we did just now. I'll show you again. Open up the wizard. I can close that at any time with the closing icon in the top right corner. And there you can, for example, quickly activate the survey and then proceed. Good. Long story short, this is the one part about the activating, not activating survey. It's very important. Activate the survey before you do a live distribution. So, and then, as I said, it's a summary step. So it tells me what is the selected survey, what is the selected sample, have I some filter applied, what type of channel I use, and the number of recipients. So I can quickly do a checkup if everything is correct before I send it out. So let's say everything is correct and press on finish. And now it will generate me the links per person. And as you can see, it was super fast, already created the link list, and it gives me some additional information. So now that we see the sampling project, because whenever you start creating those invitations, as we did just now with the link list, we create a sampling project that we can select. And then we see on the sidebar all information to this sampling project. So this sampling project uses this sample. It was created at that date and time, and it has a status. So linked lists by default are in field. They can have also the status of draft if they were not created yet. They are not finished, the wizard that we saw before. Or for example, if you have an email distribution set up that is scheduled for the future, then it will tell you that it is scheduled as state. We see also that 2 interviews were generated. It's this one. And down here we have a distribution log. We see that there was an invitation, a linked list created on that date, that time. And we know also who created it. And we get the response statistics for this one. And as you can see, you can have multiple waves. That's what I said to you in the beginning. That, for example, your sample can be sent out in multiple waves. You can only invite a subset with the filter step in the wizard that we saw before. And by doing that, you can create multiple waves. So if I press on invite more participants, I could create another wave by inviting additional people to the ones that are already invited. And then down here, I have response statistics over all my waves inside that sampling project. So if that is something that you do with multiple waves, you have also that as a whole. and you can have the individual response statistics by going into the invitation within the wave. Good. So for the next step, let's download the linked list, and we can do that by clicking here, and then we will have it available. Now it's ready. Let's open it up. And this is how our downloaded sample, our downloaded linked list looks like. So we have in the first column the link, and this contains the individual link per respondent. And as you can see, each row corresponds to one sample member that I invited. So we have on the right part, we see all member fields. So all the fields, all the information that I have in my sample for each respondent. And on the left side, I have the information where it came from. So what survey was invited, what distributor was used. So I get some additional information. I see the state of each individual interview. And this allows me to also check that at any time. So when I download it, I always get the latest version of it. When I download it, I see what's the current state of each individual interview. So to see if it worked, we already adjusted our survey. We created the placeholder and the filter, if you remember. Let's see what we see for Verena, and just to see that here. So Verena, that's her name that we have in here, and field A is 2. And if we both and all remember correctly, then we have a filter that only show the gender variable if the value for field A is 1. So we should not see the gender variable for her. So let's see if that works. We open up the survey. And now you can see it shows the placeholder of her first name. And when I press next, I don't see the gender variable. So that is the case for Verena in our list. Let's open up the second one for John. There we have the value 1. So we should see the gender variable. So we see this is John. Hi John, it says here. So the placeholder is replaced correctly. And when I go next to the next page, I see that the filter is working. So since his value is value 1 for field A, he sees the gender variable. Good. So there you can see that those linked list items do work. And now when I download the linked list once more, that's what I said earlier, I get the latest state. Then we will see that now we have both state in progress because we opened those links. So that we have it always up to date. And by doing so can, for example, with an external tool, also send out reminders if necessary based on the status. So for now, let's pause the video at this moment. You create your linked list and also test the links that you created, download the linked list. Check if you actually see different versions of your survey based on your filters and your placeholders, and see that everything works. And we will see us in a few minutes. Welcome back to the onboarding distribute video. We will now continue with something else, some additional features that we want to show you that is related to using a sample, not necessarily to distributing. And this is the access control very first. So we go back to the build page where we have our general survey settings. So let's talk about the access control. We have this access control setting down here for multiple participation, and multiple participation for individual personalized links can be prohibited 100%. So as long as I can identify the person from my sample that I invited, I can secure that this person can fill out the survey only once with this one interview that I created the moment that I created the distributor, the sampling project. So this I can allow, disallow here. If I allow multiple participation for a personal link, that means that this person can fill out the survey, open up his personal link again, and then fill it out a second time. So this is multiple participation. This is just one part. This is for your information. This is how those work. Second part, when I work with samples, I can work with code authentication. And now we come to this column that I initially explained or quickly scratched the surface of, that we have this code variable for each member that the system also generates automatically when I import a new sample. So each member has their own unique code within its sample. So the code identifies that person. What can I do with that? The typical use case for code authentication is, for example, I send out a letter with the anonymous public survey link and a personalized code in that letter to tell them, hey, this is the code you can use. These can even be 2 different letters for security reasons. So for some cases, this makes sense. And then I can enable code authentication. And let's do that. We enable that, single access, 1 interview per code, and we select our sample. Now we have that enabled. And now if I enable code authentication and I open the personalized link, the anonymous link, the public link, we will see that now the survey asks us for our invitation code. So as you can see here, now it asks, please enter your invitation code. And since we already have our linked list downloaded, let's use that linked list to see what codes we have available. So in here we have the code for Verena. Let's use that one. And maybe as a quick explanation, you don't need to have a linked list created already to use code authentication. This can work totally separately without any sampling project created, because the code already authenticates the person from the sample, and we already selected the sample that should have access to the survey, so the connection is existing, and the interview would be created the moment the person enters the survey. Good. But for now, we have this invitation code. This is the code that we have from our Excel file, this column code. We downloaded that earlier, and let's use this one. I press on continue, and we see I identified, authenticated Verena again for this survey, even though I used the public link and then identified myself with the code that I have in the Excel list. So this is code access that I can do. And there, in the typical case, typical setting, if we go back to the build page, let's go back to build, access control. Onboarding distribute sample is single access currently the setting. And with single access, I mean I only access with 1 person per code. But I also have the opportunity to set it to group access. Group access means that a whole group of people can use the same code. And to explain that, I have an image that we want to have a look at. So this is the personal code, 1 interview per code. So we have the linked list, they use the anonymous link, and this person uses his personal invitation access code, and he opens his personal interview. Then we have groups, group access. So a lot of people, let's say it's a class from a school that is supposed to rate their teacher. So the teacher asks them, hey, how do you rate my teaching in this class? So each of them opens the anonymous survey link, and from their teacher, they get a group access code. And this group access code actually identifies the group, the class as a whole, and gives us the information who is the teacher of that class. And this I can save then in the sample. So I save there the group information. Each member in my sample, in the group access code case, identifies a whole group of people. So this is what it stands for. And then when they send it out, they each have their own interview, own individual interview. So 3 people using the group access code will create 3 interviews, each fill out their own interview. This is what group access is for. And this is the setting we have down here. Good. At this moment, I would say we again make a pause. Please enable code authentication. Select your sample that you uploaded and test it to see how well the code access works and what the user flow is, the respondent flow. And we will see us back in a few minutes. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed using code access. But before we continue, please make sure you disable code authentication, just to make sure that later on, when we want to open up the links, that we don't get asked for our code again when we use the anonymous link. And while we disable that, a quick check, I wanted to show you something. What happens if I now actually open up the public link or the test link when I'm not authenticated as a member, since I use certain filters and placeholders? What does actually happen to the placeholders? So I open up the test link, and you will already see, as soon as it's open up, that now it only says hi. So it does not replace the placeholder with something. It is replaced with nothing, but it's not seen. So whenever I have a placeholder where there is no reference to it, it will be empty, and since it's empty, it will be replaced with empty. So in this case, it says hi, and not, as we have on the build page defined, hi and the first name, because that is replaced with nothing. Good. Let's continue, because the next thing we want to do is actually sending out an email invitation. And to do an email invitation, we will go to the messages page. So we will leave the survey for a minute and go into the library. And from the main navigation library, we can go to messages. And in here, you can have your message templates. So all the messages that you want to use or reuse for later distributions, you can create in here and prepare for the distributions. So by default, when we set up your account, when you are a new subscriber, a new client, then we actually already create a default invitation in a simplified way. Also already in your design, your colors. This is just for the video, a very simplified one that has all the placeholders inside, like there would be your logo, and then there is the text, and there's a button and an unsubscribe link. This is one part of the default that we usually have. You feel free to adjust that according to your needs, that it fits the text that you actually expect. So this message for this video is in English, as you can see on the sidebar. Messages also can have multiple languages, but for the video today, we just keep it in English. Feel free to use whatever language you like. In general, when we invite our respondents from our sample and we have multiple languages in our message, it tries to match the language of the respondent to the message. So if my respondent has a language set that is not supported by the message, then he will receive the message in the default language. So just to understand what's a default language, if a message has multiple languages, it always comes with the default language, and you decide which one the default is. And there it defines which language will be sent out to each individual sample member. Good. Messages have names. This you can adjust according to project names or similar. You are totally free to do that. And then you have the individual information, like the sender email address. And this is according to your subscription. It can be a custom domain, or you have a Survalyzer subdomain, depends a little bit on your account and account settings. And then we have the sender name. So there is also a tooltip that explains you what the sender name is. And in a few minutes, we give you a second to also send this example message to yourself. Feel free to do that in a minute. And then you define a subject. And you can also have a reply to email. So the reply to email address that you can define, that you are totally free what address that is. This is the address when the recipient of your invitation presses on reply, then the reply goes to the address you define in here. So if that's necessary and you want your respondents to be able to reply to the invitations, it makes sense to put somebody's email address in here that can actually receive those emails, because those emails to no reply at our email addresses, they don't have an inbox. So they will not be received. Good, that's the sidebar. Let's quickly talk about the content. So we have those areas, when you hover them, they get a little bit highlighted. It's the same for the start survey button. So the text of the start button you can change, the bottom text, the top text. This you can change. The layout around it, that is defined. So there is always a layout that we pre-create for you, and you use that layout. And then in this layout, you can adjust certain areas. Good. If you want to adjust this with more precise text settings, you can always double click, and then you open the already known rich text editor to adjust the texts. So for example, you can do things bold, right? And stuff like that you can do in here. As also in those rich text editors, again, here we also have placeholders. And then here we have some particular message related survey placeholders for the survey link, the personal link that gets generated. And also we have the member variables, which is our individual members. So the first name, last name, as it is already placed. We can also have custom fields in there. And the very important opt-out link is also one of the placeholders. And those you can find in the placeholders list. In preparation for this video, we recommend to read this email sending policy guidelines. So if you didn't do so before, please open up this link and read that Survalyzer email sending policy page. It explains you what is a hard bounce, what is a soft bounce, what is a compliant. All those things get explained to you on that page. And it also sets some rules that are very, very important if you want your emails to be received correctly and not just go to some spam folders. So this is very, very important to read this, to understand this, and try to be consistent and compliant to those rules. So really, please read it. And if any questions come up, feel free to ask your responsible customer success manager. We are very happy to help you to understand it and comply to those definitions on this page. So really just read it, go through it. And if any questions come up, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager. He will help you comply and apply all those things explained on this page. Good. So the next thing that we want to do, we actually want to send us a test email. So if you want to do it right away, you can do it with me. You can put in your email address in here. And let's send it out, and let's have a look at this email as soon as it arrives. And there it is. There is the email that we've just received. And as you can see, again, here we don't have a member when we send out this test link, this test invitation. Therefore, those placeholders get replaced with nothing once again. So this is empty. And it gives us otherwise the message that we created. So there you can see the message, how it would look. The message are in general responsive. So the emails look good also down on phone size. So there are mobile friendly invitations that we generally create layout wise. So also that is covered. So this is what we can do on the message page. Let's go back to the survey and actually send out a message. Let's send out an email invitation. So here we will add another invitation, a new sampling project using the same sample. And we will go in here, press on email distribution. So you can easily see on top the number of steps. If I click on email distribution, we have way more steps to do now. And let's do that. email distribution. Second step is the filter step, same way that we have on the link list creation. We can set a filter to only have a subset invited if we want to. We skip that for now. And then we actually come to the question, what language, what message do we want to send? We have this default email message that is already created, that always exists. It's an almost plain HTML, plain text email. And we have this default invitation that we just looked at in the messages step. And if I go next, then I see that the stuff that I already put in before, like the first name, the email address, the default language, etc., is already everything defined. Also here again, notifying and additional information. Don't forget the email policy guidelines. And down here I have the message content that at this position I can adjust again for this particular distribution. So whatever I change in here is not saved into my message template. It's by default only saved for this particular distribution. So I can now do adjustments for this distribution on this step. And when I have done my changes, I can send myself here also once again a test email. And this is the default recommendation we do. If you do adjustments, always send yourself a test email just to check if the adjustments you did actually work. It doesn't work with placeholders because we don't identify anyone from the sample, but at least we see that it works, that all the rest is correct and we don't have any typos inside. So it's sometimes easier to look at it in your received email program instead of on this page. It's just to make sure, I'll have a second set of eyes look at it to make sure before you send out an invitation to 5,000 people that the content of your message is actually correct. If you want to override the message in the message templates, you can press on save. Or if you want to save it as a new message template, you can save it as a new message. So both is possible, but by default, if you don't press either, it will just save the changes for this particular distribution. Good. Then next, we see here field face start date. And this allows us to actually say, hey, when do I want to send out the invitation? Do I want to do it right now, or do I want to maybe do it tomorrow? Then I can do that. It's to say tomorrow, directly at lunch, I want to send a reminder, or I want to send out the invitation. Depending on what I want to do, I can define that in field face. So go next, and now we see field face starts on a particular date and time. And again, the warning that I did not have activated my survey yet. And since I have it scheduled, the button says send the emails at that date. Now this is when I schedule things. So let's go back, say we want to send it now, and send 2 emails now, and wait for a second for it to be received. And maybe this is a good place to quickly stop the video and do the same. So create the sampling project, send yourself the email based on the sample with your email addresses in it, and then we will have a look at the email that you receive. So if you did it the same way I did, you should have received 2 emails now, one for Verena and one for John. This is the email for John. You see, Dear John Doe, so the placeholders were replaced. And we also see that we now have a survey link where we in the beginning have the default hash, and then the hash that is for this individual member. We also have an unsubscribe that works, as you see and know from the guidelines what should be done. So let's press on Start Survey, see that it works also on the survey side. And now there it is. Hi John, so it identifies John. And let's fill out the survey quickly. So we did that. Let's select 3 shops, give it a rating, select one, add some text, fill out our default survey, and now we are done. Now we have it finished, and let's go back here, refresh the page. And now we see that even though I invited John already twice, because I now have two sampling projects for the same person, for the same sample, I know that John was invited twice, but each sampling project has its own personal invitation for those members. And now I can see that in the email one, the one that I just clicked on and actually answered, I have completed for John. But in the old one, where John is also be part of, I see it's in progress, because here, this invitation, this interview that got generated by creating this sampling project was not filled out yet. So John has still the possibility to fill out the survey a second time because he was invited twice. And this is very, very important. There's a big difference between additional invitations or sending out reminders. The member gets an additional invitation, means he gets an additional interview. So please keep that in mind when you want to send out reminders. Don't create a new sampling project. Press the send reminder button. Just this as a side note. But here we can also very well see that we have the information about the statistics. And when I go very, very in the detail, I also see here that they were invited, this not responded, this one is completed, and I can download the bounce statistics. This allows me to see how many people that actually have full mailbox or where the email address didn't exist, stuff like that. I can download that and check it up, maybe correct the email addresses if they were wrong, and then invite that person once again. Good. And there is this big button now, since we have sampling projects, and there is the need sometimes to remind people at a later stage. And the reminding process in Survalyzer always only sends emails to the ones that were not, that did not finish the survey yet, so that have not a completed state. So when I press on reminder, you see that I have only one of two distribution channels, so either email distribution or SMS to remind somebody. So if I would do email, I could go through the whole step, and we will do that. Just quickly go through this without adjusting anything. We want to send it now. And in the sidebar now, in the distribution log, I can see that I just sent a reminder. So it's still processing it. That's the state I can see here. But as you can see, you can send a reminder. You can also schedule a reminder. So if I today already sent out the invitation, I can schedule a reminder for Friday. And at the moment of the reminding execution, it checks the status of the interview. So you can easily plan that ahead of time, that you invite and remind on particular dates and times that you want to have it happening. So this is possible when using email distributions. And this is what you can see here. So as I said, I have two sampling projects with their own statistics. And this is email distribution. So maybe we stop the video here once again, and please, of the first invitation that you sent, when you sent yourself the invitation, fill out the survey once and then send yourself a reminder in the next task, so that you can actually see that when the reminder is executed, that you will only receive one email for the one person that did not fill out the survey yet. So this is just to see how the reminding process is working, and that really only the ones that did not complete yet the survey will be invited. Perfect, welcome back. And let's have a look at the last steps for the distribution basic information that we wanted to deliver to you today. And we will next have a look at the sample actually. So let's go back out of that survey. Let's go back to samples, open up our sample that we used. And I want to show you some additional information that you can also just click with me or later on pause the video and do it. Please select one of the members. And when you do that, we will this time open up the interviews section. So each individual member has an interview section. And use the one that you actually filled out the survey with. Because you can then see on the bottom here, there's one interview that has the completed state and the date of completion. So this is very important information. And you also see that there is a second interview. This is the older one. This was created when we created the linked list, and this one was created we created the email. So that's an additional indicator that we actually have 2 interviews for this one person for the same survey. We also see the survey name on the front, and we see when it was completed. It gives us the opportunity for this individual interview to reset it. So let's say you have a survey that you send out and a respondent calls you and says, oh, I actually made mistakes. My answers are not entirely correct. I need to correct something. Some very particular cases can happen. Then you can actually find this member in this list, open up the interview section and reset that interview. And then this interview gets set to the first page, and the member can open his personal link once again and fill out the survey a second time with pre-filled answers already. So this is what you can do here. You can delete the individual interview, and you can also download the PDF. And if you are doing it with me, you can just click on it if you want, and it will create a PDF export of that interview. This just takes a second. So let's have a look at this interview. So we have this typical Survalyzer PDF export, with a table of contents. You can click it, it goes to the page, and there we see actually the survey, right? The text block in the beginning, we see the questions and the answers that the respondent gave, and have an interview export like this. So this allows you to check the answers in a PDF quickly. This is the PDF export to use in this particular case. Good. So if you didn't already do it yourself, you can pause the video once again and do exactly that, and download the PDF and have a look. If not, you can, if you did it already, we can just continue, because the next thing is you can individually remind respondents. So in this case, I can say I want to remind only this person. So let's say I invited him, I got a hard bounce, the email address was wrong. That member has a wrong email address. And it was just a typo. So we fix it, we adjust the email address, save it so that it will be correct, and then we remind only that person. Then we don't invite him a second time, but we actually send him the same survey link a second time. And this is very important for statistics later on. If you have questions about this, feel free to ask your responsible customer success manager. But generally, that's the process for those kind of cases. So this is about reminding individually. You can also invite individually. So let's say you added a new member manually. There was one member that you wanted to add to the sample, but you added it after you already invited everybody. Then you can add a new member, set it, and then there's this invite button, this icon. You can press on that and then invite that person individually. You see here when I click on it, invite single member John Doe. And then I can say what survey do I want him to invite him to, and then I can select the channel, etc., etc. So every step can be done like that. So far, so good. That is actually what we can do on an individual member level. And the last thing is the actual Excel export and import. So you can always, when you have your sample, you can download the sample. So when I click on here, I get the current status of my members. So it opens up in a second. This is my sample. And I could update my sample in here. I could do adjustments. Let's say I uploaded them with a wrong language, and I want them to actually speak German, not English. So I do that, I save it. And then I can import members from Excel. And now I use that Excel, import those members. Again, the same setting that we know from before. And we finish it. Takes a second to finish up. And then we'll see that the correct language now will be German, because we updated them with the German language code. So as we can see, the import is finished. 2 members were updated on the last update and the last file import. And when I click on it now, I see that language German is selected. Yeah, and that's all the basics you have to know about samples and distributing to those samples. Distribute basic videos therefore finished. Thank you for listening and watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it and that it helped you to understand our software a little bit better. And feel free to watch all the other videos that are available. The next video that we recommend doing after basic build and basic distribute is basic analyze. And that's the video you should watch next.